Okay. So what we're going to do is going to map the muscles of the hip. First thing to do is to find out the bony structures. So where we're going to start with our definitive structure is the ASIS, the anterior superior iliac spine. Find the ASIS, slide straight back from that, you're going to find the PSIS. If you take your hand and you invert it down and you've got like an L shape and you slide underneath the gluteal fold, you should be able to touch the ischial tuberosity. From here, if you go from the ASIS to the ischial tuberosity in a straight line, halfway across there is greater trochanter. So 10 muscles here, all attaching to the greater trochanter. So if we're on the greater trochanter here to the ASIS, if we draw an imaginary line, if we halve that line and then drop our finger inferior to the ASIS onto the border of TFL, we're now holding tension fascia lata between our fingers there. So the muscle bulk is right between our hands there. If we want to find gluteus medius, if we find the ASIS, put your little finger on the ASIS and drop your wrist down here onto the greater trochanter, run your fingers across the iliac crest, slide on back to put your little finger on the PSIS. Put your hand on here so you can feel the iliac crest here, and then what you want to do is just wrap that anterior hand over the posterior, let that thumb line up with that little finger back to the PSIS. That's the shape of glute med, that's the posterior border, that's the upper border. Little finger on the front is the anterior, and that's the attachment. If we do glute min, which is deep to that, draw a line from the ASIS to the PSIS, draw a straight line, mark thirds on that. Forget that posterior third, because that's just the sciatic notch back there. Turn that hand over, so now we've got the anterior to mid-third. Find the trochanter, drop to the anterior aspects of the trochanter, because it's the anterior concave facet attachment, and that's glute min for you there. If you want to find glute max, ASIS to the PSIS, draw a line from the PSIS to the trochanter. Long border palpation of the thumb, slide on over. There's the border of glute max. Glute max is running across here, across the sacrum. It's going across the sacrotuberous ligament, where it's got attachments to that as well. And it's running down onto the greater trochanter over here, onto the femur, onto the IT band. So if we want to do the deep rotators now, ASIS, PSIS, find the PSIS, drop this hand over, ring finger into this space over here, over the PSIS into S2, palpate down till you run out of sacrum here, span your fingers evenly, S2, S3, S4. Now piriformis is running from the anterior aspect of the sacrum between S2 and S4. So it's pear-shaped, as its name suggests, so it's running diagonally, it's narrowing. So if we find the top of the trochanter, take your fingers and narrow as you move towards your finger on the greater trochanter here. As you drop off the edge of the sacrum, here will be your piriformis in this space here, between here and here. Directly below your piriformis here, on the inferior aspect of the sacrum, running across to the sacrospinous attachment here, you've got the sacrospinous ligaments onto the spine of the ischium, and you'll have coccygeus over that, and then you'll have gemellus superior there. Now immediately underneath that, you're going to have obturator internus, which is coming from the inside of the obturator foramen, making its way out around the ischium, and it's wrapping around and it's coming back to the trochanter here. And immediately inferior to that, you're going to have gemellus inferior as well. Now, if you want to find quadratus femoris, if we find the ASIS to show us the PSIS and we drop down to the ischium, if we look at this distance here and we kind of go for thirds, if we just narrow this third down and go from the ischium straight away across to the trochanter, this is going to be quadratus femoris. If we want to add the sciatic nerve into this so we can identify that, again, if we go ASIS to the PSIS, find S2, palpate down the sacrum until we run out of bone, S3, S4, take your S3 finger here and just move over till you drop off the bone, because there's no nerve we need to think about until we're getting out from the sacrum. Find the PSIS, drop down to the ischium, go lateral to the ischium. That's going to be the line of your sciatic nerve as well.